Boo! Happy Halloween. It's Haunted House! On the Atari 2600, I absolutely hated this game as a kid. Probably because I didn't understand it. Now that I do, I can't say that I'm terribly fond of it, but I do respect its creativity. Even though it's really not that scary, E.T. is far more terrifying. I have memories of this game and E.T. together because my friend back in the day had them both. We didn't like either of them. But now that I've actually read the instructions, Haunted House is actually an interesting, well-designed game, given the limitations of the Atari, whereas E.T. is a giant pile of crap. So I hated E.T. before it was cool to hate E.T. Gouged in the eyeballs by a bat again. Will he ever learn? Here's what you do in Haunted House. You run around in the dark looking for 3 pieces of an urn that you assemble and then bring to the entrance of this mansion, and I guess you're scored for that somehow, depending on how many matches you use. In that previous game I used 5 matches, and this one I'm up to 11 because I can't find the damned urn, but I can run through the ghosts because I've found the magic scepter. But in order to pick up the pieces of the urn, I must put down the magic scepter, which makes me vulnerable to attack by ghosts and spiders and bats. Pretty cool, huh? This is back in the days when you had to use imagination when playing your video games. Before games looked better than real life, they looked like this. There's 4 different levels to this mansion. Each one is color-coded. The first level is blue, and sometimes you'll get lucky and all of the urn pieces are on the first floor. Hooray! I win. Great sound effects, even though I think that's the same sound as in Yar's Revenge. No complaints there, of course. There's 9 different difficulty settings in Haunted House, and it does get a bit spooky when you turn off the walls or make the walls invisible, because then you're surrounded by a real feeling of dread. Especially when you run into a locked room that you can't get out of and there's ghosts attacking you. Like, that sucks. Good times. You know, there's a lot of fairly abstract games on the Atari where developers back in the day were trying new and interesting things. Sometimes they didn't work. And I think I initially thought this was more of an abstract game than it is. It's really not that difficult to understand if you actually read the instructions and play it a few times. That being said, I'm not really sure I see the point either. There's a couple different house layouts. You can add locked doors and more enemies and stuff. And it definitely gets trickier when you have to put down the key to pick up the piece of the urn. But ultimately, I think I'd rather play something like Yar's Revenge. Had I understood this one back in 1981 or 82, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more. Because it does a good job taking you somewhere spooky using your imagination. And the game is tricky. Personally, I prefer more of the arcade-style games. I also remember my friend had The Empire Strikes Back, so it was way more fun to blow the crap out of AT-ATs than try to figure out Haunted House. I had very little patience for this. If you want to add this one to your collection, it's really easy to find and super cheap to collect these days. And I've got a classic game room shout out and thank you going all the way up to Buffalo, New York to my man Ben in Buffalo. Thank you, Ben. It may not have been obvious, but there's stairs on the tops and, depending on which level it is, the sides that take you from floor to floor. So thanks again, Ben, for sending this to the show. It was fun to figure out Haunted House after all these years, but I'd still rather be blowing up AT-ATs. The best of Classic Game Room is on DVD, Blu-ray, and Laser Hyper Vision album set.